Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. For those of you who are watching the video, know that we are both, well, no, I guess if you're watching the video, you would know. If you're listening to the podcast, you would not know that we are both in two different shades of chambray, which was
Unplanned.
not planned, but boy.
Now we're going to coordinate moving forward.
Yeah, definitely, that's not going to happen. But I like to say, if I do say so myself, I think we're wearing the heck out of the chambray. Yeah, you're welcome, chambray industry. So what we're going to dig into today was that a weird transition? Might be a weird transition after all that chambray. It's all right.
We're going to dig into not chambray.
We're going to not dig into chambray. Today, we're going to talk about the changing work landscape as a whole. Certainly, we will do some focusing on copywriting. Kind of can't avoid it on this podcast. But there are just some larger trends that we are seeing and some things that I have lived through as a professional that I think color what we're seeing now. And also, there's just so much chaos, so much clickbait, and so much everybody panic, everybody freak out, because it gets you to open articles, it gets you to share articles, it gets you to watch videos, which I understand. They're trying to get you to take action. This is a whole different topic, but I feel like in a lot of ways, journalism, at least headline writing, has become a lot more like copywriting than it has fact-based journalism. But that's neither here nor there, and for a different conversation.
It's here to kind of, the reason I say we're inevitably going to talk about AI, and I was saying this to a student the other day, that like, of course, AI is shifting this part of the shift with what we're seeing with work and copywriting too. But of course, a headline that says AI is taking these jobs are going to be obsolete because of AI is going to get way more clicks than 5 ways AI is shifting the way people work. That feels a little bit more boring, quite frankly, but it's more accurate.
Yes. Well, and that's, journalism used to be all about facts, strictly facts. And these jobs are going to be obsolete by, okay, if you are not 100% certain that is the truth, then it's not a fact. That is an opinion. That is a guess, a prediction. And it's also a prediction tempered by, I guess we're getting right into journalism, which a great deal of respect for journalism, great deal of respect. But I think that there are a lot of articles that skew more toward, quite frankly, copywriting, getting people to view things in one way more than another. As a journalist, right? Like as a journalist, you have no expertise, generally no expertise in what you're writing about. You might have some that might be your beat. You might have some general awareness. Like you're a careers journalist. Okay, great. Your expertise is in quote unquote careers. But if you're writing about copywriting, for example, your expertise is not going to be in copywriting or in the copywriting industry. So you're already going into it covering a topic without expertise. But on top of that, because you're a journalist, but then this is just how stories work, you are going to be relying on your contacts, relying on the information you get from the people you're interviewing to color the story for the information. Well, if they are not fully experts, or if their view is skewed, or if they don't have all of the information, then that colors the entire article. And then you have like thousands of people or tens of thousands of people or more freaking out based on misinformation from like
a handful of individuals.
I'm thinking specifically last year. I think it was last year. Was it 2 years ago? There was an article in the Washington Post that came out. Yeah. That actually, I know, like my mom sent it to me. It was very much like, AI is going to take copywriters' career. Here are 2 copywriters who have already lost their careers. And I was like, all right, well, this is interesting. Let's take a look. And the article was, yes, it was about two young people who had lost their jobs. I want to say they were maybe like 22, 23. And not that their age necessarily has something to do with it, but and yes, their bosses had said to them, we don't need you anymore. We're going to be using AI. Here's the thing. These 2 people were saying that they were copywriters, but they were content writers. They were writing blog posts. And I think we have been saying for a very long time that the first people to go of any kind are those kind of like extra enhance the customer experience or nurture the customer, or if it's not directly related to sales, if it's not directly related to results, it's going to be one of the first roles to go. And unfortunately, content writing is a role like that. So in this article, to get all the way back, apologies for the long preamble, or maybe I'm in the amble now. Anyway, these people were content writers who didn't realize they were early enough in their career, green enough, that they didn't even understand there was a difference between content and copy. So they were calling themselves copywriters, even though they were content writers. And again, because the journalist only had the experience of these two people to color his knowledge of the situation, he was making a statement about AI taking copywriters' jobs based on very inaccurate initial information. And what that turned into in our career was a lot of people going, oh my gosh, AI is going to take our careers. When you actually dig into it and read the information, it was a totally different story.
Yeah. And look, I think that for the rest of this episode, we are fully losing your job sucks. Let's just put that out there. That is like, no matter who you are and what you're going through, it sucks. Let's move on from that point. I think I just want to put that out there as a blanket statement. That said, I think one of the biggest things and shifts we're seeing is that, things are always changing. Technology is always shifting, evolving. And if we're not evolving our skills with it, yes, there's going to be a big gap if we kind of get into a role, whether it's copywriting or otherwise, and we just rely on the skills and foundation that we've built, which hopefully, it can take you a long way. A strong foundation can take you a long way in your career. But if you do not continue to stay on top of what is going on in the world, what is shifting in the world, then yes, I think with time, it might be able to go a couple of years and everything's fine, but maybe you look up from your desk 5-10 years down the road and you think, oh my gosh, and maybe you have lost your job at that point. And again, it sucks. But there is recourse at that point, of course, for shifting what skills you have and building on top of them. But the better situation, why we're sharing this, frankly, is because there's an opportunity for you to build on your skills long before that shift happens. So thinking specifically of copywriting, when I first started copywriting, I don't think Instagram was out yet. It didn't exist. And so that's a whole new platform. I mean, certainly, obviously, now TikTok, Snapchat, and there are brands on all of those platforms. And have I written for Snapchat? No, but I have had clients that, are looking for ways to do that. And do I feel confident that I could deliver on that copy? Absolutely. But I need to know about that platform, even if I'm not writing for that platform. So same thing with, I'm trying to think of another platform I haven't written for. Snapchat's the example that I'm thinking of, but I'm aware of it. I understand how it works. I understand in thinking of ways that it could apply to clients. Does this make sense for this client? Does this not make sense for a client? And continually evaluating what's out in the space, even if it's not part of my job description. It's not a project that I've been tasked to complete. And that's what's going to set anyone apart from their counterparts, is that ability to continue to look for ways to improve, to add value to their clients. I know we say this all of the time, but we are not just writers. This came up recently with someone positioning themselves as a copywriting strategist. And I thought, sure, you can use that language.
Welcome to the club.
Right. If you want to call yourself that, if you feel like that'll make a difference, fine. But that should be very evident. It shouldn't be something you should tell. It should be something you show. And you can show you are coming to your work strategically in your portfolio, in showing what the problem was, how you solved it with the writing that you produced. You can show it by the questions you asked your client on a kickoff call. You can show it in how you're pitching clients and showing the value that you're already bringing to the table by evaluating what they're doing and what ideas you have for that brand. Mm-hmm. So the writing, we always say it's such a small, I think I put in response to this, like it's 25 to 30% of what we do. And that maybe feels really low to people, but there's so much more to what we do. And so I think in the shifting landscape, yes, copywriters are going to lose their jobs if they're not doing all of the things that they should be doing. That's anyone. If you're calling yourself a copywriter or a teacher or a name your profession and you're not doing your
A
job,
dentist is going to lose their job if they're not keeping up with the latest technology, with the litest tools and all of that kind of thing.
They're
This
still
is
filling
not
your teeth with mercury. Like,
oh, please, please no. Every career develops, right? And it is not just copywriters. And I know that we are in the copywriting industry, and so it feels especially unsettling for us. But we are not the only career that is facing changes, and every career is always facing development. I think before we get into that, though, if you're saying like, well, I know it's not just okay, I get it intellectually, I get it. It's just, but everything I see on the internet, everything I see on Instagram, everything I see on the news, everything I see is about copywriters losing their jobs. Oh, my friend, welcome to how the algorithm works.
Gotcha.
Yes. If you have interacted with anything, if you have taken the time to read a headline, the algorithm, it says, okay, this person likes this kind of content.
On this
I'm
content.
going to give them more. We hear this all the time after students join the CCA and they get into the course and they're like, oh my gosh, now that I'm in here, I didn't realize how many other copywriting courses there are. And is the market being flooded with copywriters?
Yes.
No, it's because you clicked on our course, which I believe is the best one, firmly believe is the best one. And we work hard to make sure that it's the best one. But you clicked on it. And so the algorithm is going, oh, give them more of that. Give them, they like this, give them more of it. So if you, and you know, sometimes like, well, I haven't clicked on an article about copywriters losing their jobs. Friend, if you paused for a moment to read the headline, the algorithm is going, oh, they want more content about this. I'm going to give them more content about it. And if you clicked on it, boy, oh boy, are you going to get videos and art. It's going to come at you and not just like, well, but I didn't just see it on Instagram. I also saw it on whatever news website. It all works together. So if you are, before we start going, everything I see, yes, correct. Everything you see, but that does not mean that is everything in the world. It just means that your perception of the world by way of what you are getting via news and content and all that kind of stuff, that is being shaped for you based on the things that you interact with. If you want to stop seeing things, stop interacting with them. And you'll notice this even just like on Instagram. You click on one thing and you get like ads for it, 10,000 ads for it. And as soon as you stop clicking on those kinds of ads and start clicking on different kinds of ads, you're going to get 10,000 ads for those things. That's a kind of a small, maybe not microcosm, but a small example of it. But anyway, just to set expectations first. Yes, if you're seeing a lot of this, absolutely, because it's being fed back to you because the algorithm understands that you are interested in it.
Well, and frankly, when it comes to ads too, if we're talking, then people are going to retarget you. And for a lot of things, when it comes to, I know like consumer purchases, I think the stat is something like you have to see something 7 times before you make a purchase, or the average person sees something. So yes, they're going to keep serving it up to you because you're more likely to do whatever it is that they want you to do if you see it more and more and more.
Also, if you interact with headlines that are more fear and panic based, it's going to give you more fear and panic based headlines, not even necessarily just on that topic, but if it wants to give you what it thinks you want. So whatever you interact with, it's going to give you more of it. So please just keep this in mind. What you are seeing on the internet is not the totality of the world.
Well, just a side note too, take a break for even a couple of days if you can't do a full week, and just see how it makes you feel. Because when you live in the real world and you start to bring yourself back to that, it feels a lot better. It's a little less scary and daunting, and you're left with the, okay, what do I need to do? What do I want to do? And not being dictated, your choices being dictated by what you're being fed.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because it all is, I realize you may be thinking, well, you're getting a little off topic, Kate and Nick, because where we're talking about the changing landscape. But if the way that you
This is part of the
feel
landscape,
about your
though.
career, exactly, it is part of the landscape. It is
Yeah.
woven into the landscape. The way
Mhm.
that you feel about your career and your career prospect is being affected by what content you are being given. It is all part of the process,
Mhm.
or it is all part of the landscape. But the what I want to get back to is the idea that careers are always changing and always evolving. The wisest thing that we can do is be aware of what's happening and learning. And CCA students, you know that there's a reason why we give lifetime access to the CCA and why we have released our AI for copywriters
Mhm.
courses so that you can use it as a tool. But in any industry, you have to be aware of what is happening in the landscape because it's always going, like you were saying, the dentist. A dentist, if you think about when you went into the dentist's office 10 years ago, the machines that they're using, the
Mhm.
technology they're using is totally different from what they're doing today. And that's actually probably true for the vast majority of careers. The things that they are using, the tools, the technology, all of that is totally different. And just as professionals, part of our jobs is to keep up with that.
Mhm. Yeah, there are genuinely more opportunities for us than ever. But I think where and I use Instagram as an example, TikTok, there's so many more platforms that require copywriters, strategy from those copywriters. There's
Mhm.
so much more, and there's because of the, especially thinking of social media, just the cycle of it being so much faster than a magazine where maybe it's a monthly magazine and you're doing an ad once a month that you're refreshing
Yeah.
for someone. That cadence and that cycle is very, very different. So there's a higher volume of creation. There's more content than ever, and people are consuming it more than ever. So there's just
Mhm.
more opportunity. And thinking of content writers, even there's still plenty of work for content writers, but you have to differentiate yourself from what is AI going to spew out? It's going to spew out what already exists. And so if someone's hiring you off of Upwork to do something super, super cheap, then that's going to be the exact company that's going to go to AI and be like, well, AI can spit out this same thing super, super fast, cheap, whatever. But if you say, I know how to, I'm a really good interviewer and I can get really compelling stories from first person sources and from subject matter experts, and I can weave these quotes in here, and what's our angle, and here's a take that no one else has done before. Here's what AI has given me. Here's how I can make this different for the brand I'm working with. There's value there, but you have to, it's not just here's an assignment, go do it. It's thinking about how can we stand out from everything else that already exists. And I
Yeah.
think what's going to get anyone into trouble and what is getting people into trouble is if you're doing things the way that you've always done it, that's the trap you don't want to fall into. And of course, as always, you don't want clients coming to you with work. We don't do that. We don't wait for that. And yes, inevitably that's going to dry up if that's your strategy versus looking around and engaging with what is out in the world. And again, not just waiting for assignments to come to you. And even if you have to just continually be evolving your skills and to look up once in a while, because it's easy to get into our bubbles and say, okay, well, I've got work with this client and I feel good about it. Something is always going to shift, and hopefully it doesn't mean losing your job. Hopefully that client and that business is shifting along with the landscape, and maybe you get opportunities with your clients to do work in these new spaces. And maybe, certainly, I hope you're learning to use AI to improve what you're doing and to work faster and to have it do tasks that are can be automated or can't, that aren't, don't require a heavy level of strategy. But if you're not doing those things, then yeah, it's going to hit you really fast, and it's going to feel like a surprise, and it's going to suck. But it's also going to be like, oh, I should have been looking up that whole time.
Yeah.
I got comfortable. It's easy to get comfortable. I catch myself in that. I'm like, I just want to be lazy for a day. But everything's going to keep changing no matter that. If there's one thing, truth in life and with our work, is that nothing is certain. Nothing today is not going to look like tomorrow. It's just not. And I think the sooner that we accept that, and I think we don't want to, because I wrote this quote down specifically for this conversation of, from Mel Robbins, of even if you know what is making you miserable, even if what you know is making you miserable, it's still what you know. And so there's a comfort to what you know, even if you're at a job that you hate, it's what you know. It's the unknown.
The devil you know.
Yeah, we act like we know what's going to happen in the future because we're at a job and we're like, oh, this is great, this is fine, this is what it's going to be for indefinitely till I leave or till I make a choice otherwise. And that's just not true. And it sucks. And I have no other word. I realize you're like, Kate, you've said it sucks a lot, but yeah. And it can be, that can be true. But at the same time, okay, it sucks, but now what?
But does it suck? Because here's
Yeah.
another way of looking at this. Thank goodness there are always
True.
new things happening.
Yeah.
Thank goodness there are always new elements being developed, new things to write, new ways to write,
New ways to take my x-rays at the dentist that don't hurt and cut my mouth. Yes.
You know, yes, thank goodness. Like you were saying, Instagram didn't exist when you were getting started. When I was getting started, apps didn't exist. I'm not even positive that
Right, the
iPhone existed. Yes, like Fire barely existed. But oh, Nikki, she's so old. But you know, I started out doing print and direct mail, and then email became big, and then whoa, isn't this fun? Let's write for email, and then all of the things that you could do in emails and on websites and on apps, all of that stuff developed, and it just got more and more interesting and more fun. And yes, did I have to stay aware of what was possible and what the possibilities were? And part of that was working with clients. As clients were doing new things, I would discover new things, or also just being aware of what was going on. But yes, I had to stay on top of it, but it also was so interesting. It kept my job interesting, and it kept my job fun. And that is a good thing. Is it exhausting sometimes? Yes, because I realize that technology is changing faster than ever, but also nobody expects you to stay 100% on top of technology. The fact is that for most of the time, you're going to be ahead of where your clients are. If you're being aware of this, and if you are, you know, we're giving you, CCA students, we give you resources within the AI course for you to stay on top of it. And a lot of times you're going to be, if not exactly where your clients are, you might even be ahead of them. But all of this just makes it more fun.
Yeah.
Hey there, it's Nikki. I wanted to take a very quick minute to make sure that you knew about our free on-demand copywriting training. Now, whether you are brand new to copywriting or you've been doing it for a while, but you just can't seem to hit those income goals, this training is for you. You are going to learn the 3 secrets to landing freelance copywriting work without relying on frustrating job bidding sites like Upwork or Fiverr, or without cold calling strangers. And if you've watched any of the student success stories on this channel, and if you haven't yet, check them out. This is the exact same training that they all started with. And I mean students like Kate K, who is making 6 figures working part-time and retired her husband to help her build her business. Students like Stuart, who replaced his full-time salary, which was a good one, with his freelance income and then some. Stacy, who hit 6 figures in her first 6 months as a freelance copywriter, and Ashley, who landed the in-house copywriting job of her dreams. They all started with this free training, and you can start with this free training too. So sign up right now at freecopywritingtraining.com.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I joke about the internet, but I'm thinking of like, even when I started for my portfolio, like Squarespace didn't exist. That wasn't an option.
Yeah.
How cool that it exists now, and it's way easier to build your online portfolio than it ever has been in the past, which is amazing. It does make so many things so much easier.
Yes.
And again, the fundamentals of copywriting have not changed from, again, go look on the internet. I don't know if I buy the BC is when copywriting first started, you know, like the dawn of
People
writing,
being
when people being
persuasive with writing.
Exactly. Fine. But whatever kind of period you want to start where copywriting begins, like the fundamentals of what you're doing haven't much changed, you know, talking to benefits versus features and why that's important. What's in it for me? What am I going to gain from this? It's just how you apply it. And so knowing how to learn a new platform, there's going to be YouTube tutorials. There are going to be ways to do it. There are going to be short nuances to how you apply it. And within the course, we'll certainly add new material to how do I apply this to this specific
That's such a great point, because it's easier than ever to learn this new stuff.
Yes, yes.
It used to be like, God, when you were building your first website, it was on WordPress, and I remember, good for you. You dug in and you learned WordPress.
Very cool, but
learning coding, and it was, you
yeah.
had
Oh yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yes, you go Google X or go to ChatGPT and ask, and although you have to check it because it's CCA students, and then AI course, you have to double check everything because it's not always accurate. But there are tutorials for anything. And also any new technology website, they're creating tutorials because they don't want you to email a customer service team. They want to answer it before you get to their customer service team. So it's easier than ever to learn all of these new things. There's so much that you can master in an afternoon by sitting down. And Kate, even the building website, Squarespace now has an AI component. They just rolled it out. I heard about it. Actually, I heard about it from a friend who has a company that builds Squarespace templates. So she's figuring out how that is going to affect her business. It's just, but she's aware, and I don't want to say concerned. She's aware, and she's thinking, okay, how is this new element going to affect my business? She is aware that there are some people who are just going to use the AI Squarespace templates, but she also knows because there are always people who want stuff fast and cheap. And we don't begrudge that, but there are also people who understand the desire for a little bit of customization, and then also people who want a high level of customization. And that's how it is for everyone. Everyone has all kinds of different needs. And yes, and we've said this before, are there going to be companies that are like, great, I'm just going to use ChatGPT for my copy, and then I don't okay. If you're willing to outsource 100% of or even a high percentage of the messaging for your company, which is the most important part of your business, if you're willing to outsource that without getting any kind of expert help, then best of luck to you. I want to predict that in any times of financial turmoil, these are going to be the companies that have the problems first, because they don't know how to message aside from, let me just see what ChatGPT pops out. Little bit of a tangent, but it's always going to be easier and easier to, as technology develops, it's going to be easier and easier to actually master it.
Yeah, and it's not like these companies, you still need time and a human to use ChatGPT. Again, it's a tool. It's not a fully functioning human in your office that you can, here's this vague assignment and it's going to deliver everything it needs. It can't ask you necessarily, not yet at least, the questions back that we would ask as copywriters to get the information we need to deliver a more pointed strategic output. And I shared this with you, Nikki, the other day, but even clients that I work with, there's such a range of how they're using AI and how they're not using AI. I work with one client whose AI policy is very much, we do not use AI. They have to get written permission to their legal team for anyone to use it. And even then it's for very niche use cases, more automations than, original thought and creation. And they don't want their information, I think, quite frankly, probably put into a tool like that. So there you have that extreme on one end. And then you have people who have grown up in the digital era, digital online business owners, where they are the type of people that are going to buy the iPhone when it first came out. They're the type of people that are going to try the new alpha, not even beta technology before it's even the kinks have been worked out. They're going to try all of the things because that is who they are, what they're used to. They're used to moving fast. They want things that can help speed business along. And so you have this range. Granted, now all of these clients, I'm working with ones on either extreme and in the middle. I think that gap is going to be interesting to see. Do the businesses that have a firm no AI policy start to loosen that a little bit, because they might be left behind, just like the people who are not learning new technology are going to be left behind. We'll see. I don't necessarily have a prediction on that, but I am willing to bet that you think copywriting's been around since BC times, I have no doubt it will survive. Will it look the same? No, but like we said, with everything in this shifting landscape, no job ever looks the same. And if it does, that should be a red flag to you. Oh, this has been the same for the past 3, 4, 5 years. What have I been missing? Did I just get too comfortable in my role that I kind of forgot to check in with what's new and what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. I guess what it really all comes down to is just thinking things through before we take the emotional leap,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before we go, oh, everything's going to change. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
things are going to change.
yes, they will. They will change. It is a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
Everything will change. Everything has always changed. Look at
Mm-hmm.
the factory system. We were just talking about this before we got on the
Yeah.
call. Like the factory system, you used to have thousands of seamstresses in one factory, and often in really terrible working conditions. Well, see that we don't have that experience anymore. We don't have that kind of career anymore. Are there still seamstresses? Yes, absolutely, but they are much more specialized, and now
Mm-hmm.
it's careers and business and the landscape changes. But to avoid giving yourself unnecessary angst, just be real careful before you make that leap to everything's changing, because I know all of these headlines, all of this. I was just looking today at a subject line that came through that it was literally something like AI is going to replace copywriters, and I was like, well, this is interesting because I was aware of who this person was, so I clicked in, and it was an email trying to sell AI for copywriters, or AI tools for copywriters. So you see, like he hooked you in with that fear, or or it was hoping to hook people in with that fear and then sell to them. And also, by the way, I'm fully confident that our program is better. Our AI program is better, which is again is within the CCA. But so just be aware of what they're trying to do, what emotions they're trying to elicit. Headlines are not, even if it's on a journalistic website, headlines are not straight facts anymore. They're just not. I was talking with some students a little while ago, talking about, I forget if it was on Medium or they saw it on YouTube or something that was like, copywriting has changed and why I'm getting out of copywriting in 2025 and AI is taking my career as a copywriter. And bear in mind too, first of all, they're doing that because they want you to click. Okay. And then also bear in mind that not all copywriters are created equal. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that this
Yeah.
copywriter is not skilled. I'm not saying that they may be, but also too, aside from like we were saying in the beginning, are they a copywriter or are they a content writer? So that's the first thing to think about. But also if they're like, I can't find clients anymore, AI is taking my jobs. Okay, well, let's pause and find out where you were finding clients before to begin
Mm-hmm.
with.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is a copywriter who's saying, yeah, I was finding all my clients on Upwork and it, yeah, I'm
Or you
really
hitting
not
the easy apply
surprised.
button when you apply to job. I've applied to
Yes.
5,000 jobs and I haven't heard back from any of them.
Are you clicking that one button apply? Yeah, exactly. That's
What's
yes, I'm not surprised if someone is using Upwork to find work and they were at all successful with it. I'm not surprised they're struggling with
mm-hmm.
it because on Upwork, you have the clients that are looking for the best they can get for the cheapest. Well, guess what? If those same kind of clients can now get it for free. So those are the kind of clients who are going to be going over to ChatGPT and Claude and all those kinds of things. On top of the fact that the big problem with those websites is you're competing for that kind of client, but you're also competing with other people who are incentivized to drive down their rates. Well, guess what? You are also now going to be competing with some people who are using ChatGPT to create subpar copy that they will sell for substandard rates. You can't compete with that, and you don't want to compete with that. But my point is that I'm getting out of copyright. I can't find clients no matter what. Okay, well, what are you doing to find those clients? Because don't make the assumption, I know CCA students, you know that we have a system for finding clients. Most freelancers do not.
Yeah.
Most freelancers they're throwing stuff at a wall to see what sticks, and that's not a good way. It's never been a good way to make a living.
Yeah, and I understand too. I think there's just a lot of uncertainty. People feel more uncertain than ever with
Yes.
for many, many reasons right now. It feels like a lot's going on that's coloring everything, including the work and, our businesses, what's happening and recession talk or as we cycle through this every handful of years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get that. And I certainly don't want to dismiss the feelings of, ooh, feels extra uncertain. And someone said this to me not too long ago of like, everything's more uncertain than ever. And I thought,
Mhm.
I don't think the level of uncertainty has changed per se. I think we like to think things are more certain than they are, but we don't know what's going to be different tomorrow than today. All we can do is, I have a friend that says stay in the day, which I love. Stay in the day. Obviously, poke your head up to know what's going on. We don't want to, but stay in the day, because we can't know what's going to happen tomorrow, never mind 5 days from now or a month from now or a year from now. That uncertainty exists. I think we just fool ourselves into thinking that it doesn't, because it's uncomfortable. But the more I think you work towards just accepting that
Yeah.
there's uncertainty, it's kind of freeing, and it's a
Well,
really wonderful place to be in, actually.
yes. I love that. And I love this. Like, yes, things have always been uncertain. I think when
Mhm.
we think like, well, in my 20s, things felt more certain. Okay, well, did you have the same concerns you had in your 20s? Were
Did the
you,
algorithm infect? That's what I
yeah,
think about. I didn't
yeah,
have the
exactly.
algorithm dictating my thought
But
process.
even
So
like,
yeah,
oh, well,
it felt better.
back in the 80s, there was Iran Contra, there was the Cold War, in the 50s and 60s were such great. Okay, well, there was major, I mean, they're kind of perpetually racial issues that we as a country and as a world need to deal with. But in addition to major changes in how the races interact, also on top of that, you had children hiding underneath their desks because they were afraid of nuclear weapons. So, and that, like, I think World War II London. I think about that a lot. The idea of that every night bombs were being
Mhm.
dropped on your neighborhood, and most of the men that you knew were going off to war, and so few of them would come back.
And if
Even
they did
just,
come back, it's a very
yes,
different human.
yes, and even just, I was at an event and I can't think of what the presidents were, but someone showed they were their handbills promoting the presidents, promoting each of the. It was like very early presidents. I want to say maybe like this, good Lord, I probably should have done some research. The second or third,
Taft. Oh,
yeah,
you're
exactly.
being
No,
earlier. Oh,
very early.
okay.
And the handbills were saying things like, "This president is going to," or if this guy is, clearly not the exact copy, but if he's elected, he's going to enslave your wives and your children, and this one is going, like, just wild things, but no different than the anxiety invoking things that we are feeling right now. So I completely agree with the idea that yes, things feel uncertain, or are we just more aware of them
Yeah.
being uncertain? Are we in this
Yeah.
moment? Do we have more awareness and more content
Yes, we have
coming at us
more.
from more places? We've got the internet, we've got emails, we've got social media, we've got podcasts, we've got all of this stuff. If you're getting a message 5 different ways, it's probably going to feel a lot more stressful than if you're getting a message one different way, or
Yeah.
1 different way, or 2 different ways. The 80s, early 90s, people were getting their messages through TV and
Mhm.
through the newspaper.
Mhm.
Okay, now multiply that by 10, by
Yeah.
20 now. Yes, of course it feels
And you can't go anywhere
frightening.
without, even if you leave, sometimes I leave my phone at home when I go out to eat, which is lovely. But then how many restaurants have TVs on? And
Yes.
it depends, who knows what they're playing. But you go to the gym, there are TV. Like, it's very hard to get away from the
Yeah.
information overload.
Hmm.
So yeah. And
Well, and again, not to get too far off the topic, but I find that it's hard for me to not be consuming something. If I'm
yeah.
walking around the house, I'm like, oh, let me put in a
Yeah.
podcast, because there's always so much to learn. There's always so much so I'm now
Mhm.
making a concern, or an audiobook, and not that there's anything wrong with audiobooks or podcast. Obviously, continue to listen to your podcast, one in particular. But sometimes it's good to have nothing playing, not even
Yes.
music, like just enjoy silence for a little bit. Give your
Yeah.
brain a break. Give your emotions a break. Give your nervous system a break.
I was listening to something today, and dig into it deeper because I feel like I'm going to butcher this, but they called it popcorn brain. And just the idea of the way our brains become consuming, we're jumping from this and jumping to that. And we all know that multitasking, it's not a thing. But the way then our brains, when we try to disconnect, it's so much slower because we're used to, ooh, this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And to disconnect, and it can feel uncomfortable because we've been in this process of feeding our brain just constant change and new and new and new versus just like let me stare out the window for 5 minutes and what do I see? The bird? Like, that can be really powerful and wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's, so many of us will say like, oh, I can't watch a movie without having my phone out. Like I sit down to watch a movie and then I instantly pull my phone out. Like, okay, that's that word can't. I don't like that word can't. It's, are you primed to do it? Yeah, probably. So you know what? Start breaking. This is something we should all do.
Break the cycle.
Admittedly, I take my computer downstairs at the end of the day. I usually making dinner, put on some TV. Maybe I'm doing a little work on my computer as well. None of this is good. Which, okay, I make the commitment now that I'm going to scale back on that. But if you don't like it, then stop it. If you don't like how you feel, this very morning, I woke up before the alarm and I opened up my phone to see what podcasts I downloaded. Because I love podcasts. It's like a present every morning, a bunch of presents every morning. And then I was like, oh, and I had a couple extra minutes before the alarm. So I flipped over to social media and just instantly I'm watching stuff and I'm feeling bad and I'm feeling stressed. And by the time I got out of bed, I was feeling so low, so down. I had to make a concerted effort at the start of my, and I know better. I know better, but I did. I was saying to a friend of mine, the beginning of the day, my heart is this like, wow, it's a whole new day. How wonderful. There's so much hope. And then to like take your just gentle, soft little heart and show it social media first thing in the morning is just cruel. So it will not make that mistake again. It was a very good reminder, but it took me a long time to get back to a place of equilibrium where I could go about my day and be effective without feeling like everything's terrible. Because everything isn't terrible. There are absolutely some terrible things and things that need to be addressed and things that need to be fixed in socially as a whole. But also there's some things that maybe are freaking us out. I guess kind of just pulling this full circle, some things that are freaking us out that don't need to be freaking us out. That we're buying into these headlines of chaos, Armageddon, your career is going to disappear. Well, probably not. Is it going to evolve? Yes. But that was always the case. It was guaranteed that your career was going to evolve.
If not
everybody,
something else.
Anyone. Exactly. Even if you were a shopkeeper, right? When you started out opening up your shop, this was the technology at the point of sale at the register. And then this, and then you keep
cash, credit card, Square, Venmo.
Yes. Even the way that you inventory, all that kind of stuff. No matter what career, it's always going to be evolving. But the good thing is a lot of those evolutions will work to your benefit as long as you stay aware of them. And as part of our commitment to our students and to you, to listeners, is to help you stay aware of them and help you stay on top of them. Be careful. Anytime that you feel that panic, anytime you feel that, I know this is how things are. And I'm sorry, that probably sounded very patronizing. I don't mean to. What I'm saying is that's the sound my mind.
We all do it.
Exactly. That's the voice that my brain does. I don't mean that's what you're doing. But if your brain is similar and you are getting that same thing, I can tell you I have a bit more. If you've been in copywriting for a couple of years, that's great. I have a bit more experience beyond this. We're at 20, getting closer and closer to 25.
A quarter century.
Thanks, Kate.
We're going to celebrate that win.
Fun. That's fun to point that out. Anyway, but and beyond that, I work with a lot of people who've been in marketing for even longer than that. So I have some perspective. I have that perspective to share with you. I have perspective from people who've even been in it for longer. Things are going to change, but that doesn't necessarily, I was going to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It's often not a bad thing. Just stay up with it. Stay aware. Okay. So I realized that was probably kind of a longer one. We have been talking for a while. You get us all riled up and we get going. But the long and short of it, we hope that if you have been feeling that tension or that concern or any of these, or if you've been seeing the headlines or watching the videos, or first of all, stop doing that because they're just going to keep giving you more of those. We hope that this episode will help to just kind of calm you down a little bit. And if you haven't yet, take a nice deep breath in through the nose, use the diaphragm. and out through the mouth. And also, pro tip,
Oh, that
keep
does feel
the exhale a little bit longer than the inhale. That helps soothe the nervous system. So inhale, let's say inhale for 3, exhale for 5. That's going to get you headed in the right direction. I am not a doctor. So with that, we will catch you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.